Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar the Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar the Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Balavan, can you turn this up a little bit? My voice is quite weak. Trying to sing. Okay. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamadiriyet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhaktim bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance and classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On the second day of September 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order, Chapter 25, the description of the characteristics of King Puranjan. Text number 41. Ka nama vira vikyatam vadanyam priyadarshanam navranita priyam praptam madrishi tvadrisham patim. Ka nama vira vikyatam vadanyam priyadarshanam navranita priyam praptam madrishi tvadrisham patim. Ka nama vira vikyatam vadanyam priyadarshanam navranita priyam praptam madrishi tvadrisham patim. Ka nama vira vikyatam vadanyam priyadarshanam navranita priyam praptam madrishi tvadrisham patim. Ka nama vira vikyatam vadanyam priyadarshanam navranita priyam praptam madrishi tvadrisham patim. Ka nama vira vikyatam vadanyam priyadarshanam navranita priyam praptam madrishi tvadrisham patim. Ka nama vira vikyatam vadanyam priyadarshanam nita priyam praptam madrishi tvadrisham patim. Ka nama vira vikyatam vadanyam priyadarshanam navranita priyam praptam madrishim tvadrisham patim. Kunde. Ka nama vira vikyatam vadanyam priyadarshanam navranita priyam praptam madrishi tvadrisham patim. Ka, who, nama, indeed, vira, my dear hero, vikyatam, famous, vadanyam, magnanimous, priyadarshanam, beautiful, na, not, vrinita, would accept, priyam, easily, praptam, gotten, madrishi, like me, tvadrisham, like you, patim, husband. Translation. So this is the lady in the forest speaking to Puranjan. Oh, my dear hero, who in this world will not accept a husband like you? You are so famous, so magnanimous, so beautiful, and so easily gotten. Purport. Every husband is certainly a great hero to his wife. In other words, if a woman loves a man, that man appears very beautiful and magnanimous. Unless one becomes beautiful in the eyes of another, one cannot dedicate his whole life to another. The husband is considered very magnanimous because he gives as many children to the wife as she likes. Every woman is fond of children. Therefore, any husband who can please his wife by sex and giving her children is considered very magnanimous. Not only does the husband become magnanimous by begetting children, but by giving his wife ornaments, nice food, and dresses, he keeps her completely under submission. Such a satisfied wife will never give up the company of her husband. Manu Samhita recommends that to keep a wife satisfied, a husband should give her some ornaments, because women are generally fond of home, ornaments, dresses, children, etc. In this way, the woman is the center of all material enjoyment. In this regard, the word vikyatam is very significant. A man is always famous for his aggression toward a beautiful woman, and such aggression is sometimes considered rape. Although rape is not legally allowed, it is a fact that a woman likes a man who is very expert at rape. Om Jnana Timbarandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. And we've just heard the most controversial paragraph in all of Srila Prabhupada's books, in his purports. Yeah. So I think I should probably address it, since it has been handed down like a hot potato for the last 4 days without actually reading the Bhagavatam. It was justified, all the wonderful holidays we've just celebrated. So, you may not know this, but this particular paragraph and this whole sentence, especially this phrase, is the fact woman likes a man who's very expert at rape, has been used extensively on Facebook to defame Srila Prabhupada, to paint him as a misogynist, and it's going on to this very day for years. And so the BBT is enjoined to try to do something with this passage, and so I'd like to just spend a few minutes, not all class, dealing with it. First of all, 5 years ago I was flown all the way to India to present a solution to this problem to the GBC. They have a mid-year meeting every year before Mayapur. And this was in the Eco-Village. I got to see the Eco-Village in near Bombay. And I presented a little paper. I'm not going to read the paper, but I'll read the conclusion to the paper, which is that we would do some editing to this paragraph and explain it with a footnote. So I'll read that. It'll take all of like 2 or 3 minutes. So this was my suggestion. It hasn't been accepted yet, but this is where I come in on it. That this whole passage, with just a little introduction, if you read Srila Prabhupada's book carefully, you'll find that he sometimes uses words that in a different way than we use even in American English. There's English and there's American English. There is English that Prabhupada learned in the early 20th century that's based on the Scottish Church's College. Is coming from England. And you'll find these special usages in the Oxford English Dictionary. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Maybe it needs to be turned up. I guess. All right, let's try it this way. So there's various words, just like in this very, forget about the rape passage for a minute, the word magnanimous. Now, if you look carefully at the dictionary, magnanimous is not synonymous with munificent. Magnanimous means a very forgiving person, a large heart like that. It doesn't emphasize being very generous. The word munificent, which sometimes Prabhupada uses in this context, especially to describe Lord Chaitanya, the most munificent avatar, because he's freely giving out prema, love of God, to everybody. So we don't always change it. Munificent and magnanimous. Magnanimous has come to mean that in context in Srila Prabhupada's books. But that's a minor instance of this. You'll find other instances you may notice. If you read the Bhagavad Gita and other books, the word flavor means fragrance. Now that's not what we use on this side of the sea. In other words, that's in England. You may find them using that. That flavor can mean the fragrance of a flower, and you'll find that in the Bhagavad Gita we read every night, which is like from 2013. We've since fixed those to mean to say fragrance. A kind of an obvious instance of this. So I was working on the revising or the Krishna book in 1994, and many of you are familiar with this passage or this chapter where Rukmini and Krishna are engaging in banter back and forth. There's a whole chapter like that where he wants to draw out her loving annoyance with him, and so he says, well, actually you should have married someone else. You know, no one knows what my real caste is, and I really don't have any affection for my wives and children. You know, I'm self-satisfied. So instead of becoming angry, she faints away. You know, she faints away. And Krishna says, "Oh, I'm sorry." He manifests 2 more arms. He's Narayan, you know, 2 more arms, and he wipes her hand. You know, I was just joking. But then, being, you know, the supreme devotee that she is, she then responds to him and has all this argument and these things. In the course of which she says, she turns all of his arguments around, you know. It's a wonderful chapter. And in the course of doing that, she says something like this, that any woman who rejects you and rejects service to your lotus feet must accept a husband who's nothing but really a bag of bones with some mustaches on it, you know, and giving off bad smells like that. It's pretty shocking what she says, you know. And and what she says there, any woman who has not tasted the flavor of your lotus feet must do this. And it comes up twice in the passage, you know. And I mean, I don't know about you, Vijayendra, but when I read that, I think all the devotees said, well, far out, you know. I mean, all of the queens are so humble and that they kiss Krishna's lotus feet and they taste the flavor of his lotus feet. What else are you going to think? Taste the flavor. But what Prabhupada was saying there, when you look in the Sanskrit and so, flavor means fragrance. Taste means relish. Those women who cannot relish the fragrance of your lotus feet. You see? So you can kind of get off. Now, the same thing happened in this passage. I'm not going to go into detail. But the result is, here's the way that I have concluded, and I can send you this paper. If you wanted to send me an email, I'll give it to you. It's 5 pages. It's almost like a perfect storm of Prabhupada using words like the word aggression. Aggression means in English that you're attacking somebody, you know, physically, verbally. You know, it's a negative connotation. But aggression can also mean like we were having an aggressive advertising campaign. You know what I mean? In other words, just very energetic, full of enthusiasm, you know. So, but if you're talking about an aggressive attack, no, that's a rape, right? Obviously, you know what it means. No, in Prabhupada's lingo, he talks about how Krishna's flute attacks the gopis and drags them, you know. In other words, very energetic seduction, which is just what we've been witnessing here on both sides. He's seducing her, and now she's seducing him. This is a classic Maya. We're having a kind of an archetypal encounter here of the conditioned soul with his material intelligence, and through the intelligence, he's trying to enjoy all of material life. So here's the way to read. Now, see the difference. In this regard, this is what we just read, but with the changes. In this regard, the word vikyatam is very significant, famous. A man is always famous for his aggressive seduction of beautiful women. And such aggression is sometimes mistaken for rape. It is a fact that a woman likes a man who is very expert in such so-called rape, although actual rape is, of course, illegal. Now, we made a footnote here. In all previous printings of Srimad Bhagavatam, the last 2 sentences of this purport have read, a man is always famous for his aggression toward a beautiful woman, and such aggression is sometimes considered rape. Although rape is not legally allowed, it is a fact that a woman likes a man who is very expert at rape. Close quote. A lapse in editing resulted in a passage that gave many readers the wrong impression that Srila Prabhupada thought women liked to be violently attacked and forced to have sexual intercourse against their will, which is the general understanding of what rape means, right? What he was actually saying is that women like a man who's expert at aggressive seduction, who sweeps them off their feet. The word aggression here is used in a positive sense as given in this definition from Oxford English Dictionary. Quote, feeling or energy displayed in asserting oneself, in showing drive or initiative, aggressive assertiveness, forcefulness. That this is Srila Prabhupada's intended meaning for aggression becomes even clearer in the next verse, which we'll read tomorrow, assumedly, which contains this sentence. Actually, you relieve the distress of husbandless women like us by your attractive smile and your aggressive mercy. Now, in ordinary American English, you don't usually associate the 2 words mercy with aggression. But here he's using that aggressive again in the same positive connotation. Close quote. To clear any misimpression concerning the word rape and aggression, the editors have adjusted the wording as shown and provided this explanatory note. And that's all we're going to say about that paragraph. And if we have more discussion at the end, or you can see me privately or write me an email. So what we see here is the material intelligence is personified by this woman, is engaged in fulfilling the material desires of the living entity in this world. There's a certain what is the material intelligence? Well, it's above the mind. It's a discriminating factor, but especially in the human being, it's highly developed. And so the things that we try to enjoy in this world are all judged enjoyable, and the strategy for how to attain them is there in the intelligence. The mind, of course, is sankalpa vikalpa. It reacts because it's the center of the senses. But how that enjoyment is going to take place, and expanding on it and visualizing it, is all coming in through the intelligence. So the intelligence is the key element. Even in all our practice of devotional service, we're, of course, purifying the senses, we're purifying the mind, but the intelligence is also becoming purified and strengthened to guide the mind and the senses in the path of bhakti. This verse, which I won't chant again at every class, but it's there by Madhavendra Puri. Lord Chaitanya quotes it in the beginning of his instruction to Sanatana Goswami concerning the practice of devotional service, the Abhideya portion of his instruction. They divide into three, Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojan. And it's very interesting, right? Because we're doing some work on Nectar of Devotion, and there's a certain section called submission, which really means submission of an appeal. And so it's called Vigyapti. And Vigyapti is something we're familiar with, although we may not be so familiar with the name. And Vigyapti means submitting an appeal to Krishna, approaching it with a prayer, or one of the forms is confession. It says, I'm completely disqualified. That's why sometimes you read these songs by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I've spent my whole life, in material life and accumulating material knowledge. There's a famous song like that. And he's condemning himself, teaching us, of course. But that's one of the kinds. So this verse by Madhavendra Puri, which Lord Chaitanya quotes in the Krishnadas Kaviraj quotes Lord Chaitanya speaking to Sanatana Goswami, is one like that. And it involves a prayer and an appeal. So it's Kamadinam. Probably we'll quote this verse. Kamadinam. Kamadinam kati nakatita palita duni deshas. Tesham jata mayna kadona natrapano pashanti. Utsujaitan atiyodupate sampratam labdha buddhis. I've regained my intelligence. Tvamayata shadanam abhayam mamna yung swatmadase. So he's he's confessing here in one sense. He's describing his condition previous to now becoming a devotee. And he says, in how many ways have I tried to serve the demands of my masters, cruel, unmerciful masters, lust, anger, greed, illusion, all of these things. Kamadina means lust, etc. There's a whole series. And they have not been satisfied by my service. They keep demanding more service, nor do they show me any mercy, by easing off a little bit. It's just one thing after another. And so, but now I've regained my real intelligence. And what's not said here, but it's clear from the Shastra, by association with devotees, by hearing, real philosophy. And now I'm rejecting those desires. I'm not gonna pay attention to these demands of, my lusty desires and my anger and all of this stuff. Then what are you going to do? Because you got to be a servant. That's our eternal nature, right? So now I'm approaching you, O Lord, O Lord of the Yadus, Krishna, O fearless shelter, and please engage me in your service. Tvamayatak shadanam abhayam, the fearless shelter, and engage me in your service. In other words, its very same senses and mind and intelligence has to be engaged in Krishna's senses, or it must be engaged in Maya's service. We have to serve. So that's an instance of vigyapti, an appeal. First, he's taking stock and confessing that this is how I've been, and then it includes this appeal: please give me shelter and let me engage me in your service. So this whole allegory is describing a standard way in which, especially human beings, are conditioned and how we're wandering in this, forest of enjoyment as described in the 5th canto, looking for that perfect mate or that perfect object of sense gratification, one after another. It's a huge illusion and a dreamlike promise. It's described often as a mirage, this search for happiness in the material world. Even if you get to the, get to the mirage-like pleasure, it's soon gone. It evaporates, and it often turns into the opposite. As Krishna says, that very pleasure is the source of your misery. I mean, if nothing else, it just brings you back again through birth, old age, disease, and death, which is certainly miserable. But more likely, the very pleasure itself brings misery. Is it the sex life? Well, even if it's, religious household life, there's so many difficulties there, and so many attachments, and anything can happen to your children or your wife, which causes tremendous emotional suffering. There's a disease or a death. You yourself fall prey to some temptation, and there's a million ways in which it can cause misery. And if nothing else, if everything goes right, eventually you have to leave it all. You're dragged away by death, and you're separated from those objects of love and affection and all these things. So we've been doing this for birth after birth, millions of them. So this whole allegory, when you read it through, you realize it's a lesson, and Prachana Bharisha takes the lesson, and he understands, and it's typical. He's trying to do the standard thing in that context of his historical context, and that is perform these sacrifices so you'll improve your situation here and go to heaven. You like that, but apparently he's making a botch of it. All the animals that he sacrificed are ready to take revenge, So that plus this allegory, it's illuminating. He's got the great benediction of the association of Narada Muni, and so do we. Prabhupada says in one purport in first canto famously, we really want to thank Narada Muni for appearing in these pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the great value of the Shastra, that we're really able to associate with all of these great personalities. Shukadeva Goswami, Pariksit, Krishna himself, of course. This Uddhava Gita. Was I reading that? It was in the Bhagavad Gita somewhere in the introduction, where Prabhupada talks about how in the Uddhava Gita, Krishna expands on some same themes that he dealt with in the Bhagavad Gita. And so when you realize, wow, we could just read this or hear it, and discuss, and in this way get the same benefit as the great devotees like Pariksit, who heard Bhagavatam, and Arjuna heard the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada makes that very clear. But we need to receive it in the same mood, in the same attitude that they received it, very submissively. Prabhupada's famous phrase for the word shushusho, submissive oral reception, or ardent hearing. Ardent hearing, both of those are. Ardent means, you're not missing a word. It's all coming in, and you're taking it to heart. So that's why Prabhupada was so insistent on regular classes. I mean, when he was morning and evening. I mean, we started with the evening class, and then gradually had a few serious followers, and then they would call him to his apartment. Right, they had those morning classes on the CC. Imagine in 1967, in April of 67, gathering with like 5 or 6 others and hearing Prabhupada. He was teaching reading the part about the teachings to Sanatana. Which is the most extensive and set of instructions that Lord Chaitanya gives. But so this we're reading here, and and she's now praising him. So who's seducing who here? I mean, it's a mutual arrangement. But the the whole I mean, he says, well, who is that snake with you? In other words, the thing is, she's that's my life force, that's my life energy. Don't bother him. And all these bodyguards, they all have their symbolic, But the point is, it's a big, construct that eventually doesn't work anymore. That we read about that also. The days and the nights eventually take away the strength of the body. Just like, I'm experiencing, my dancing, right. when I joined, I was a little older than most of you. I mean, I joined at 25, but I still, I was an athlete, and so when we got into this dancing and chanting, and we read about Vikreshwar Pandit. I remember reading about him, how he could dance for 3 days straight without stopping, 72 hours. And Lord Chaitanya praised him. What was it said? If I could be a Gandharva? I could fly like a Gandharva. I said, that's what I want to do. Because we'd have 3 hours every day of Harinam, especially for the newcomers like me, So I said, I want to do that. So I said, but I got to have the right shoes. I mean, you can't do flip-flops. You got to have some kind of shoes out there on the street, especially. We go to Fifth Avenue every day. So there was a shoe room. A lot of people would come on Sunday, Well, okay, I mean, they drop the shoes off and they pick them up on the way out, right? So what am I supposed to find? But sure enough, you'd get this hippie era where people would come with shoes and they would leave without shoes. So there were a whole bunch of shoes in that shoe room. So I looked and I found the perfect set of sneakers that fit me perfectly. I said, this is Krishna's arrangement, And so I would make it a point of trying to dance the whole time, which is basically jumping up and down. We weren't walking too much. We would stop in a spot. I was in the best shape of my life, But it was kind of a war between that and my passion for halva, because I eat halva, so I was gaining a little weight, and I work it off. But the point is that I could do that without any second thought. In the kirtans in the temple, as soon as I hit a madanga, I'd be jumping up and down, So time passes, and now in my 73rd year, I still like to dance. But the problem is that especially on these stone floors, I suffer, that means 2-3 days of limping on my ankles, So I just have to kind of control it. Sometimes it's not possible. And so I'm very happy to see Rajendranath, who's really a phenomenon, the way he dances and so forth, keeping us enlivened. But it's if you see me not jumping, that's why, because I say, all right, I'll pay for it for the next 3 days. So the idea is that inevitably the body grows old, and the sources of pleasure, it becomes painful, what you can't enjoy anymore, So wouldn't it be great to be able to have a source of pleasure that wouldn't diminish as you get older? That you could enjoy any time, any place, that isn't a mirage but is the real thing, That's what we're given. And it increases, and ever increasing and deeper pleasure, varieties of pleasure. Because, it becomes old, In other words, this is one of the problems, is that, I mean, you fall in love, and everything is ideal, and you're painted as but then he changes, she changes, and the circumstances change. And, if you're a responsible person, it still goes on. But the same kind of newness to the whole thing isn't there. It just can't be there on the material side. What to speak of, other kinds of things. Different kinds of music and foods and everything. It all changes. And then, what does Prahlad say? Kutrashisha shuti sukha mrigatrishni rupa. What is this aspiration for material desire? This is called ashish. We use the word asha. Shruti sukha, most of the pleasure is in hearing about it, and it has the nature, mrigatrishni rupa, of a mirage. It's there, and then you get it, and then it disappears. And he says, really, kredam kalevadam asheshuda jambiroha. This body is he says, really, idam kalevaram is a source of pleasure. It's just a real source of all kinds of diseases. And now we're saying that this is how I'm going to enjoy in this world. But then he says something very interesting, which is very pertinent. But in spite of knowing this, nirvidyate natutino nadapiti vidvan, a wise man may know this. But if he's not a devotee, or this is implied, if he's not really connected to Krishna, despite knowing it, kamananam madalavaishamayangdarapai, the very the burning fire of material desire, kamananam, the effort to try to extinguish it with honey-like drops of sense gratification, covers the knowledge. In other words, you can't desist. Nirvidyate, desisting, na tujano nadapiti vidvan. So in other words, with any amount of knowledge, you can't attain vairagya. There has to be the process of devotional service that connects you to Krishna, the chanting of the holy name, practical service with the senses of mind. That's supported by your intelligence and your knowledge, but it's not sufficient just to know that it's silly to try to enjoy sense gratification. It brings you another birth. And what will repression accomplish? Remember, what is that? Vishayavani vartande nadaharasya vasavarjam vasabhyasya padam jishrana vartate. That you may restrain by force of will, restrain yourself from engagement in sense gratification. But the desire is there still in the heart. But by getting the higher taste, padam drishtra means to see the Supreme Lord and experience in other senses, then the actual desire can be overcome. You become free of it. To the point, yadavadi mamacheta krishnapada arabinde navanamanasadhaman yuditam rantum asi tadavadi patanadi sangame smayamani bhavati mukhavikara sisthanishtivanans. This is Yamunacharya, the great acharya, devotee, who had a period of his life when he was a great king. You know the whole story, how he, and then he reverted to his detachment. There's a wonderful description of how that happened. And this verse describes how, even when remembering all of his engagements, with serving maids, whatever, harem, he says, ever since I've been enjoying ever new pleasure in serving the lotus feet of Nandanandana Krishna, at every moment, enjoying that. Now, when it crosses my mind and I think of those, engagements, sex life, my mouth, turns in disgust and I spit at the thought. He's actually feeling that way. Not that the thoughts come up and, if I can relish that, maybe I can enjoy it again. It's not like that. There's a deep-seated vairagya of detachment. Prabhupada would always quote this line from the 11th canto of verse of Yogendras. Bhakti pareshanubharo virakti anyatra cha. It says that the surrendering unto the Lord and engaging in the full devotional service produces three things practically simultaneously. Bhakti, para isha anubhava, and virakti anyatra cha. Now bhakti here means the actual taste, of the rasa, of engaging in devotional service with Krishna. The very sweet pleasure of that. And Pada Isha Anubhava means the direct experience at every moment of Krishna's presence in your heart, in your life, before you, your direct experience. And detachment from everything else, complete detachment from everything else. Just as someone sits down to a wonderful feast on the Sringa Chaturdasi, right, the whole day fasting till 8 o'clock. And you say the prayers, you have the right attitude, you start, tasting all the wonderful preparations made with love and devotion. And what are you experiencing there? Well, you're experiencing the pleasure of tasting. That's the tushti. You're becoming nourished physically, pushti, by the food. And you're becoming, your hunger is going. Your hunger for food is going also at every moment. So it's likened to that. So that's what Srila Prabhupada has given us, representing the whole parampara. Through the Shastra, through his own personality, his teachings of the process of devotional service, and working so hard to establish an institution where it can be sustained and we have a wonderful atmosphere. We can meet together. We see the deities. The Pujaris working so hard now. They're short a couple of people, and the people are stepping up to maintain wonderful darshan and all of the things that go with it. So fortunate, by which we can actually become detached from material allurement and sense gratification, and become more and more attached to Krishna in all of his forms, beginning with the holy name. So that took us exactly to 8:30. Any discussion on these? Let me read this famous. I won't read the paragraph. I'll read the translation. Oh, my dear hero, who in this world will not accept a husband like you? You are so famous, so magnanimous, so beautiful, and so easily gotten. Hare Krishna. Take down the mic, just in case anyone comes up with something in the next 5 seconds. All right. So let me give you a couple of poems along this theme. This is Rishabdev. This is based on Rishabdev's famous verse. Oh friend, oh no, don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard for hoggish happiness. Through bhakti yoga, worldly life transcend and learn to taste divine love's endless bliss. Now, of course, that verse is all about the need for austerity, tapasya. But it's tapo divyam, it's divine austerity, and that's, which means bhakti. In other words, there are some austerities, but that's what human life is meant for. Otherwise, it's no better than animal life. And wonderful thing is that even in this very life, you don't have to wait till after you die to experience the benefit. You can experience the benefits of austerity, that it makes you more qualified to taste the nectar. And Krishna reciprocates, and you can taste his holy name better. And so, but still, it's important to pray. Madhudesha madhudi mayamadava munadi mattalika mugdha mama manana mohana madama dikimanaso maha maha moham. Now it's significant he uses the word madana mohan. That's the first of the three, right? And so it attracts you away from sense gratification, especially sex. Krishna will be able to attract you from that and make your spiritual life possible. So in this verse he says, O master of Mathura, Rupa Goswami with the tour de force of alliteration, every word begins in M. O master of Mathura, lovely lord of goddess Shri, who play such maddening melodies upon your murali. O Cupid's charmer, please redeem a life till now misspent by joyfully destroying my extreme bewilderment. So Krishna wants us to be enlightened, and if we make a sincere effort, then he helps from within and without, to purify us. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.